to work through the details that we'll be adding on with the extra clay and with texture. So as you're looking at your design and deciding what you actually want it to look like, look for those details that can really push your project to make it all that much more interesting. So when I'm looking at mine, I'm going to be focusing first on getting some of the features on my sculpture. So I'm going to work first with the eyes. So to make my sculpture's eyes, I'm going to be pressing in, and you can use any kind of tool you'd like to do this, but I'll press in to make an eye socket. So this is roughly where the alligator eyes are going to be. And I'm going to match that on the other side of my sculpture too, just by pressing in to make it a little divot. From there, I'm going to go back to my clay bag here and grab out some more clay. And to make clay eyes, I'm going to be sculpting the balls that are the actual eyes and then the eyelids that go around it. We'll get a little bit closer view on this one as we work on this detail here. So I'm going to start by taking just a little chunk of clay, roll it into a ball, place it into the socket that I made. Then usually what I'll do before I put on some eyelids is I'm going to sculpt on the actual eyeball. So if you happen to have something like a little toothpick, that can be a great thing to use. So I'm going to press in to create the larger iris area. Then I might switch to the point of my toothpick and press in to create the pupil. Okay, then from there, I'm going to be rolling out 2 small coils. So you might just use your hand to do that. As the clay dries out, it's going to have a little bit more hardness to it, which will be good as we're starting to sculpt onto our project and we want to add on some texture. Okay, so next I'm going to take that coil, I'm going to put it right on top of the ball that I just put on there. So that's the top lid. Then I'll take the bottom lid and put that on there. Okay, then I'm going to be blending away the line that's on the bottom edge underneath the eyeball, like this. Kind of work my way around that way. So blend that down. I'm going to leave the line that's right on the actual eyeball because I want to keep that on there for having a good separation between the eyeball and the lids. So pretty much all animal eyes are going to look this way. All right, here's the progress I've made so far on the details of the face. So I've got an eye on both sides. You can see that on there. I've started to work through some of the texture. I've decided that for my scale texture, I'm going to just be pressing in and kind of scraping with the back end of this toothpick. That's going to create the kind of scale texture that I'd like to use. Okay, when I get into other parts of the body for detailing, I might switch over to a different kind of technique. For example, I think for the kangaroo section, I've decided I'm going to make this kind of have a fur texture. So I'm going to take a sharper end of the toothpick and I'm going to kind of scratch at the clay to create a fur texture. So I want you to think about texture and how texture is really going to make your project really stand out. So after the clay dries, which just dries by staying out of the bag, I'll be able to kind of remove some of these little bits of clay that are like little clay balls on there. Maybe I'll give this animal a little bit of character with the pose, and kind of have those arms connected together like that in the front. Maybe it's looking to hold something. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is work on the wings. So the wings themselves I'm going to be making on an armature. So here's a closer look at the wing armature, and also after I've covered it. So I've got a little toothpick that I put on there, and I wrapped it in tape so that way it holds its form. I just flattened some clay out, and I started to cover that cardboard section. So then on top of that, I'm going to start working with some of the feathers. So again, you can look at your reference picture, and you can start to kind of form things the way that you see off of that. I might even add some clay on as individual feathers on top of this. But the big thing is just to try to get the texture of feathers to come through. So here's another shot of the progress on this sculpture. I did decide that I would cut off some plastic utensils, and I was going to use that just to support the sculpture from the underside. So I have one kind of angled out towards the rear and one angled towards the front to help support the sculpture up. I've attached the wings. I've added on some extra pieces of clay to help support those. And I'm nearly ready to add on some additional texture for the feathers. So again, we're just working towards getting the sculpture put together and final detailing on it. If you notice any cracks starting to appear on your sculpture, you can take a little bit of water on your finger and you can blend away those cracks. The clay will just absorb the water and it will help to get rid of any cracks. I was noticing as I was moving the legs of my sculpture around a little bit, there was some cracks that were starting to form on part of the clay that was already starting to dry out. So again, the best thing to do is not to move your sculpture around a lot, but it does soak up water, and you can use that to bring the clay back to life a little bit, if you need to, in some parts of your sculpture. So even if you're trying to blend some areas where it's a little bit more dry in some spots and less dry in other spots, you can apply a little bit of water on your finger and blend that in on your sculpture, and that'll help to bring those areas back to life as you're working on it.